Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of Sherlock, the essential Arthur Conan Doyle adventures, by Arthur Conan Doyle, selected and introduced by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, performed by Simon Vance and Mark Gatiss.
A Study in Scarlet. The first adventure, and still one of the best. Our heroes meet. You have been in Afghanistan, I perceive. Corpse thrashing, Mormons, revenge. It must have landed like a rocket into Victorian fiction. This is the very first Sherlock Holmes adventure, which I believe was first published in Beaton's Christmas Annual. It didn't make much of a splash at the time, although all the familiar elements are there. Arthur Conan Doyle devised the character of Sherlock Holmes in part based on Edgar Allan Poe's detective Sir Auguste Dupin and on his old teacher Joseph Bell, who was a doctor who could miraculously diagnose people's professions, ailments, lifestyle choices from just looking at them. And this sort of coalesced into this extraordinary new character. There's a very interesting thing that Doyle kind of acknowledges where his influences come from in the mouth of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes dismisses Poe's character as a bungler and then proceeds to better him, which I think is a brilliant form of literary criticism and very postmodern. And this first story, I remember when I first read it as a child, it's a curious thing because it sort of divides neatly into two halves. And the first section, when Dr. Watson meets this extraordinary fellow, introduced by young Stamford at the Criterion Bar. He meets Stamford at the Criterion Bar and is introduced to this strange young man who's doing chemical researches at the laboratory of Bart's Hospital. And they become flatmates, essentially. And then he's plunged into this bizarre, lurid, crime-filled world by this young man who seems to know everything and have almost magical powers. And the first major deduction at the crime scene is so dazzling, and Doyle brilliantly doesn't answer anyone's questions for about another 4 chapters. So you are sort of impelled to keep reading. And then the second half is a sort of a very elaborate flashback to Utah and the Mormons, which as a child I remember finding.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?